Okay. We can start.
Yes. Good morning, one and all present here in this webinar. And thanks to all again for your valuable presence. And good morning to our honorable, respected resource person, Dr. Nagaraju Gundemedu sir. And we actually thank our honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Kaliraj, and respected Registrar, Dr. Murugan, for their extending their permission to conduct this webinar. Yesterday, we had a wonderful session by Dr. Ratish Kumar, who spoke about the authors Michael Foucault and Bourdieu, and his presentation was excellent and even appreciated by almost all the participants. And he clarified the interlink between both authors and their contributions. And finally, he concluded by adding that how these two authors' theoretical contributions can be applied in research. It was really a brainstorming session. And today, in the same line, we have another renowned scholar, uh, Dr. Nagaraju Gundemedu sir, Professor, Department of Sociology, School of Social Sciences, the University of Hyderabad. Sir, on behalf of Department of Sociology and Population Studies, Bharathiar University, Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, and all the participants, we wholeheartedly welcome you, sir, for this webinar. And we are really thankful to you for giving the opportunity to listen to your session. And on behalf of everybody, once again, I'll welcome you, sir. And well, I welcome all the participants,
Hello,
scholars,
sir. Can you hear me?
faculties. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir. We can hear you, sir. Yeah. So
Hello.
yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Hello.
Sir, we can hear you, sir. We can hear you.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir. Very well, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Hello.
We can hear you,
Hello.
sir. Hear you, sir.
Hello.
Sir, we can hear you, sir. Very well.
Prabhu, still Prabhu.
Hello.
Mute తీసేసాను అదిగో చూడు మైక్రోఫోన్ మ్యూట్
వినపడట్లేదు నాకు. What they are saying, I am unable to hear. Okay.
Sir, we can hear you, sir.
See, open it. Okay, yes, accept. Yes. Accept.
Our left, sir.
Hello, can you hear me, Suresh?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir. Hear you.
Sorry, sir. I think there was some
No
technical
issue,
problem.
sir. No issue, sir. So we wholeheartedly welcome you, sir, for this webinar
Thank you,
session.
sir.
Yeah, actually on insights into contemporary sociological theories, and I welcome all the participants, scholars, students, and faculties for your valuable presence. Now I'll hand over the mic to Dr. Suresh Babu, sir, to introduce the resource person. Sir.
Sir, good morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Suresh.
Good morning. Good morning.
Suresh.
Sir, good morning, everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls. It is indeed an immense pleasure to introduce a great scholar of Department of Sociology, Hyderabad Central University, Hyderabad, Telangana. Dr. Nagaraju Gundemeda holds PhD from the University of Hyderabad. He completed his PhD in 2004, immediately joined as an assistant professor in the Department of Sociology, same university, Hyderabad Central University, Telangana. And his area of interest of teaching and research interest covers sociology of health, sociology of education, sociology of youth, sociology of marginal groups, and information technology and society. And he published many more articles in national and international journals, and he guided around more than 4 PhD and 18 MPhil had been awarded under his guidance. And he published excellent ethnographic study in Hyderabad with aligning with the important person called Professor Aparna Royapal. That is called Challenges to the Elementary Education. So this is the masterpiece in Hyderabad that has been given to the government of Andhra Pradesh and also UNESCO Hyderabad. And he held many positions since 2005. Joined as assistant professor and he became reader, associate professor. Now he is holding a position of professorship, and he has been traveling in and around India and also going abroad and presenting. And especially, he's one of the important person who is visiting and having consultation with the University of Johannesburg, South Africa, and he is having an excellent touch with the many parts of the world with regard to information communication technology. And he's also a member of the Indian Sociological Societies, RC member, and also joint secretary of the Comparative Education Society of India and an executive committee member of the same organizations. And not many lists are there. If you read, and it will take more than days. And he's having excellent capability. And more than that, he is my best friend. When he was a student at Hyderabad Central University, I was a student of JNU, and we used to talk to each other in many places. Wherever the social society takes place, the conference, we used to have that relationship. That relationship still is going on, and hope that this will continue forever. An excellent thinker and progressive person, like he's working for the downtrodden people, tribal and minorities in Hyderabad and all parts of the places of the Andhra Pradesh. And sir, on behalf of Department of Sociology and Bharathiar University, Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, I welcome you wholeheartedly to deliver your lecture on two important topics and very prominent topics. They are very much useful for the not only scholars and most of the sociology fraternity. So the two topics are, one is Alfred Schu's phenomenology, the second Edward Said cultural imperialism. The two topics definitely will enlighten us, sir. So once again, I welcome you, sir, for delivering your special lecture on this occasion. Thank you so much, sir. Please welcome, sir.
So, thank you very much, Professor Suresh.
Yes,
At
sir. Yes,
the
sir.
outset, I'm extremely thankful to Professor Sambat Kumar, sir, and Professor Suresh for giving me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts on some of the sociological theories which has larger implications to understand the social groups across the world as well as Indian society in particular. As my friend Suresh has rightly mentioned, though we are friends for last 20 years, out of love and affection, he has elevated my position to a larger extent. I don't deserve the kind of appreciation he has done. He has done towards me. But anyway, friends, this is a weakness of friendship. Always, we always cherish really an intellectual companionship for the last 2 decades. And today, I'm going to speak to all
Prabhu?
So, like connection disconnected.
Disconnect actually.
So I request all the participants kindly turn off your mic and camera. So I can see few of them are still, we can see your face and what are you doing there.
Please turn off your mic, please. Cinema. All of you, please wait. I think the resource person is facing a little technical issue, so he'll be back soon.
Seema, could you please turn off your mic?
Sir, you are visible, sir, but your mic is turned off. Can you please turn on the mic? Sir, Nagaraju, sir? Yes, sir, I can hear you right now.
No, sir, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay, sir. Sorry, sir. I'm actually sorry. Okay. Friends, at the outset, really, I'm extremely thankful to Professor Sampath Kumar and Professor Suresh Babu for inviting me. I'm really sorry for the technical glitches. So now, straight away, I would like to start my lectures because we have already lost some 5 minutes. So the topic of today's lecture is methodology and epistemology of phenomenology and Orientalism. This is the topic of my lecture. So when you look at the methodology and epistemology connections, I'm sure some of you are aware of what is the meaning of epistemology. Epistemology is a study of knowledge. So as all of us know that Carl Menahem who is considered as the founder of the Sociology of Knowledge Studies. But some of you would be thinking about what is the connection between the methodology of knowledge, whether the methodology has its own knowledge politics. If at all, if we try to understand the methodology from the perspective of sociology of knowledge, how to understand this particular question. Because as my friend Dr. Suresh has given me the two topics, phenomenology and Orientalism, which have primarily challenged some of the fundamental assumptions of the sociological theories as well as the philosophy of social sciences in a broader sense. I would like to address some of the theoretical as well as the methodological questions on the issue, on the theoretical issues of the phenomenology and Orientalism. So to start with the basic idea, we are talking about the social science methodology, social science methods in general and the sociological methods in particular. We have primarily studied both the qualitative and quantitative methods as a part of our sociology, as a part of our sociological methodologies. But if you look at the broader theoretical paradigms, now I would like to share the PPT which I have prepared. Can you see now? Can you see the PPT now?
No, sir, not yet, sir. Can you share present now? Yeah, give the present now option.
Sir, can you? Okay, sir. Okay, sorry. So can you see my PPT, sir?
No, sir, not yet, sir.
So now I'm going to share the PPT, sir. Just one second.
Okay, okay.
So can you see, sir, now?
Yes, sir. You can open the PPT right now.
Okay, sir. Okay. Now we can see the PPT, sir.
Yeah, we can see, sir. Make it a landscape. Yeah, yes.
Okay, you can see, sir, now?
Yeah, yes, sir. We can see.
Okay, sir. Start. So, as I mentioned, the methodology and epistemology of phenomenology and Orientalism is the topic of today. So, when you look at the broader theoretical debates, which primarily talks about the positivist methodology, is primarily known as the mother of the modern methodologies followed in social sciences all over the world. But the important question one need to understand is why positivism has gained popularity in the modern era. And as the founder of the sociology, Auguste Comte is also known for applying the positivist methodological traditions as a part of understanding the social reality. He is known for talking about positivism as the philosophy of science, which advocates the application of scientific method to study the human conditions and behavior. So one of the important observations which primarily comes from the positivist methodology is that it primarily equates the social world with the physical world. As some of us are aware that Auguste Comte, he was the professor of physics to start with. So his world view, his sociological imagination to a large extent was influenced by his training in physics. So as a matter of fact, positivism as a school of thought primarily rejects the metaphysics and theism. So the fundamental question here which need to be underlined is that positivism as a school of thought is known for negating the different forms and practices of the speculative understanding of the world, which was very much predominant in the pre-modern era. So this is where, friends, we need to accord the positive significance to positivism, which is known for negating the spiritual traditions and practices which are very much inbuilt until the rise of the modern epistemological traditions within methodology. So now the question here is that the positivism is also Yes, as all of us know that, I'm sure some of the previous scholars might have already spoke about what are the defining features of positivism. I don't want to go in details about what are the defining features and what are the methodological implications of positivism. But I would like to highlight what are the important questions or what are the important theoretical perspectives which are primarily known for challenging the fundamental assumptions of the positivism. So if you look at the history of the social sciences, until 1950s, most of the universities were known for following the positivist methodology as a part of the social science inquiry. So that's why this whole notion of science within social is also primarily, let's say, added in order to substantiate the equal status with the scientific disciplines, which were known for following the method of scientific understanding, which primarily stands for the observations and universality and objectivity. Objectivity, observation, universality of applications are the defining features of the positivist school of thought. But the question is that from 1950s onwards, as most of the scholars, including our social science scholars, the famous scholars like Karl Marx to Auguste Comte, most of them were known for following either evolutionary theories or diffusionist theories as a part of the sociological understanding. So if you look at it very carefully, the evolutionary theory was primarily gained intellectual significance as a part of the colonial rule. And as all of us know that the writings of Charles Darwin's The Survival of the Fittest is also very much gained popularity as a part of the colonial legacy. So this is where, friends, we need to understand the political economy of knowledge and power, which I'm going to just talk about in a few minutes. So the basic question is that until 1950s and 70s, the evolutionary theories and the diffusionist theory, which was very much popular within social and anthropology, these were the two theoretical paradigms which acquired the global significance, which, as all of us know, that which were known for, let's say, followed, which were known for justified in the name of the positivism. Though we have studied the Marxism as well as the functionalism as a school of thought, all these schools of thought were primarily part of the positivist methodology, which is known for talking about the objective reality or understanding society from a scientific perspective. So this is where we need to understand the challenges to the positivist methodological hegemony, which primarily comes from the alternative qualitative methods. So what are the alternative qualitative methods which are known for challenging the fundamental assumptions of the positivism and the kind of knowledge it has produced? So in order to answer this question, we need to have a glance at what is the basic, what are the important schools of thought which have emerged from the early part of the 20th century onwards and gained critical importance from 1960s, or broadly you can say 1970s onwards. So the moment you look at the methodology of epistemological traditions within social sciences in general and sociology and anthropology in particular, one can see the rise of symbolic interactionism, phenomenology, ethnomethodology, and feminism as the broader schools of thought. Due to paucity of time, I don't want to go in detail about the symbolic interactionism as well as the phenomenology, as well as the ethnomethodology and feminism. As the organizers have asked me to speak on the phenomenology, I wish to focus on what is the epistemology and the methodology of phenomenology, and in what way the phenomenology is very much relevant in understanding the social reality of the Indian society. So to start with the basic idea, what is phenomenology? Phenomenology, as the word as the word rightly captures, phenomenology is a combination of two words, phenomena and logy. Phenomena is basically a Greek word which primarily implies appearance, and logy is a study. So, in a simple sense, phenomenology is a scientific study of appearance. So, what is appearance? All of us would tend to use in everyday life the social phenomena. We very commonly, most of the sociologists or social science people, they generally use the concept called social phenomena and social phenomena. So here, the phenomenologists are talking about how to understand, how to study the phenomena in a much more comprehensive manner. So the question is that who are the scholars who are known for developing a comprehensive account of the phenomenology as an important branch of knowledge within philosophy of social sciences in general and sociology in particular? So we have one famous philosopher by name Edmund Husserl, and the second famous scholar and renowned sociologist by name Alfred Schultz. So what are the basic assumptions of the phenomenology and why they are important? So this is where, friends, we need to also recollect some of the important writings of the dominant epistemologies within social sciences in general, and the most important scholar who has shaped the intellectual thinking of the 20th century as well as the 21st century is Max Weber. Just I would like to talk about Max Weber after some time. But let us see what are the important assumptions which are known for guiding the phenomenology as a school of thought. So phenomenology primarily rejects the concept of objective research. So just now I mentioned that the positivism, the defining feature of positivism is objectivity. But the moment we come to phenomenology, which primarily say that the rejecting the concept of objective research, they prefer grouping assumptions through a process called phenomenological epoch. Means phenomenology primarily suspends the idea of judgment. So the fundamental problem with the mainstream, let's say, social sciences, including the sociology, is always demonstrating the nature of the relation between cause and effect. The cause and effect method. It could be whether within the framework of the qualitative methods, within the framework of the quantitative methods, within the framework of the within the framework of macro sociological traditions. But here, the scholars primarily argue that they primarily negates any form of value judgments. So the moment we talk about value judgment, what is the source of the value judgment? Who is the scholar who is known for negating the idea of the value neutrality within sociology in particular and social science in general? I think this is where we need to recall the writings of Max Weber, who is known for talking about, let's say, the limitations of the limitations of value neutral methods and methodologies. So now the point is that here they assert the scholars who follow the phenomenology, they assert that the person should be explored. The person should be explored, and this is because persons can be understood through the unique ways they reflect in the society they live in. So the fundamental assumptions of the phenomenology, and what is the objective of phenomenology? The objective of phenomenology is to study the experience and consciousness. So what constitutes the consciousness and what constitutes the experience? So what are the ways and means to study the experiences of the people, and what are the alternative ways to capture or to map out the consciousness of the people? So this is where, friends, the phenomenology as a school of thought which was primarily takes a unique position when compared to the mainstream macro as well as the micro sociological traditions, which are not given adequate importance to the question of the experience and the consciousness. So I would like to take up this whole idea of experience as epistemology at the end of this phenomenology lecture. But let me suspend that point for some time. But the basic idea here is that the phenomenologists have preferred to gather the consciousness and consciousness experience rather than the traditional data collection. So, as I mentioned just now, that the role of a phenomenologist is to capture what are the sources of human experience. What are the sources of human experience? So, though the debate, when you're talking about the debate regarding the consciousness, what is the most of the scholars, especially we have two types of scholarship. One scholarship talks about the material scholarship, which primarily comes from the Marxian notion of the material consciousness. On the other hand, we have also referred to the writings of Hegel, who talks about the ideological consciousness. So the point here is that when you're talking about the human consciousness, at least there were some attempts to capture the consciousness of the human beings. But the question is that we're talking about the experiences of the human beings. What are the ways and means to capture the human experiences, and what are the limitations of the macro and micro sociological theories and methods in capturing the human experience, and why some of the radical feminists and why some of the subaltern scholars are talking about the idea called experience as epistemology in the contemporary era. So friends, I would like to come to that point after some time, but let me suspend this particular idea. So basically the point I would like to just highlight is that the phenomenologists, they try to consider phenomenology to be oriented towards the discovery wherein they use the research methods that are less restrictive than other social sciences. So I think this is where, friends, this is one of the, let's say, strengths. This is one of the defining features of the phenomenological method. The phenomenological method as a sociological inquiry primarily allows the researcher to be much more flexible and much more open, unlike the dominant methods which are known for framing the rules and regulations in a particular epistemological schema, wherein it hardly gives the scope to the scholar to go beyond the restrictive epistemological space, which is very much inbuilt within the macro and micro sociological and anthropological traditions. So this is where capturing the human experience, how to explore the human experience and consciousness. Consciousness is primarily comes from, let's say, understanding the experience of the people, are experiencing exploring the experience of the people from the subjective worldview. So basically, the essence of phenomenology is to negate the reductionist methods and celebrate the autonomy of the human consciousness. I think this is one of the important feature of the phenomenological methodology. It primarily argues that one has to negate the reductive methodologies which are failed to capture the sociological construction of the consciousness as well as the sociological construction of the experience. So this is where, friends, we need to recall the writings of one of the leading public intellectuals of Indian society, Professor Gopal Guru, who wrote a thought-provoking article in EPW titled "How Egalitarian Are the social sciences in India. Following Gopal Guru, another professor, Vivek Kumar, has also published another article titled How Egalitarian Sociology is in the Context of the Indian Society. So these two articles, I think, to some extent, primarily captures the reductive methodological formulations which are embedded within the dominant epistemologies, followed by the classical scholars as well as the contemporary scholars of Indian sociology, ranging from, let's say, G.S. Bure to M.N. Srinivas, and many scholars from different parts of Indian society who are known for using both the macro and micro sociological traditions. So the basic idea here is that we are talking about we are talking about this whole idea of the worldview of the phenomenology. This is where we need to remember the writings of Alfred Schultz, who has written a thought-provoking book titled The Phenomenology of the Social World, wherein he primarily argues that the phenomenology of social world, the social world is primarily guided by the individual experiences with the experiences of the society. So the defining, the important point which highlighted by Alfred Schultz is that what constitutes the nature of human experience. So the human experience is an outcome of the individual experience with the experience of the society she lives in. So that means the human experience is a combination of the past and the present. The past and present, and wherein he is known for developing a concept called the intersubjectivity. The intersubjectivity concept, wherein he's trying to make a balance between the subjective understanding from the objective methodologies. So wherein he has also used one of the important concepts called the life world. The life world, where he primarily argued that the personal experiences are primarily shaped within a particular space and time. So he has used four important concepts within German language, where he primarily talks of where he primarily argues that the human experiences is primarily consists of, that is human experience. He has used the concept called the life world. So the life world is primarily consists of four parts. So the first part primarily deals with the personal experiences which are conditioned by the time and space. And the second part is primarily deals with the larger experience. In the second part, he primarily talks about the human world. Worldview is primarily guided by the larger social order which she lives. At the third level, the social worldview is also guided by the future. So, broadly speaking, Alfred Schultz, the phenomenology, is known for capturing the life world of the individuals, which is primarily a combination of the past, present, and the future, wherein it is the consciousness and experience. It is the consciousness and experience which are primarily the consciousness and experience are the guiding forces of the human worldview. So with this brief overview of the phenomenology, I would like to just make a summary of the whole perspective within just 2 lines. So here, I would like to say that phenomenology as a school of thought primarily challenges the authority of the hegemonic epistemologies and hegemonic methods. So what I mean by hegemonic epistemologies and hegemonic methods?
So if you look at very carefully, in order to understand this point, we need to refer to the relationship between the researcher and researched. So we're talking about the researcher and research. Until recently, that is until the year 2000, most of the scholars, the entire social sciences, or for that matter, the entire scientific inquiry, is primarily based on a hierarchical relationship between the researcher and researched, wherein the researcher is known for enjoying the dominant space when compared to the researched. So that's why, friends, this whole idea of the researcher and research logic is primarily based on the Western experience, the global North domination on the global South, and the white man domination on the rest of the world within the social science. That is at one level from the perspective of space and race. But from the more concrete level, we're talking about the nature of the relationship between the dominant methods and its epistemologies. What one need to understand is that they were known for this. These dominant methods are primarily worked as a vehicles of dominations, wherein the experiences of the individual, that is the human consciousness and the experience of the individuals, were not given the adequate importance. So that is one of the important feature. And the second point is that the phenomenology as a school of thought goes beyond the idea of reducing the human experience into a numbers, into a words. So the qualitative methods reduces the human experience and human consciousness into a numbers, whereas the qualitative studies were known for reducing the human experience into the words or paragraphs. So that's where, friends, the autonomy of the individual self is basically compromised within the larger methodological authority. So therefore, friends, the phenomenology as a school of thought primarily celebrates the autonomy of the self, where the individual is going to speak for herself or speak for himself. I'm sure those who are familiar with the writings of Shamila Rege, The Madness Against Manu, and also her writings on the Dalit women epistemologies. All these books and writings primarily highlights the human experience. These human experiences are known for highlighting the agency of the individual, the agencies of the communities. I'm sure all of us are familiar with the subaltern studies as a school of thought, wherein the subaltern studies are also known for celebrating the autonomy of the communities. But friends, the phenomenology as a school of thought is not only celebrate the autonomy of the community, but also autonomy of the individual self, from the perspective of the consciousness and from the perspective of the experience. I think this is where also, I think at one level, one also need to remember the writings of the debate between Sundar Sarkar and scholars like Gopal Guru, where they primarily there is this ongoing debate on the experience as epistemology and who has the right to speak for the self, whether the self has the right to speak about herself or whether the researcher has the right to speak about the self of a woman or a man. So these are some of the fundamental epistemological questions which are not only dominated the Western world but also dominating the social sciences in India. So I would like to stop by saying that when we're talking about the fundamental assumptions of the phenomenology is primarily aimed to capture the human experience from the perspective from human experience, which goes beyond the seeing and which goes beyond the seeing and speaking. So unfortunately, most of the social science knowledge is primarily working on the principles of either seeing, whether observations, physical observation, or the speaking. As all of us know that we have multiple organs. Sometimes silence is also a mode of expression. So as I'm sure those who are familiar with the sociological writings on the sociological writings on the Marxist methodology, sociological writings from the perspective of John P. Mencher, who wrote a famous article titled "The Caste System Upside Down, Not Mysterious East," based on her fieldwork in 5 villages of Tamil Nadu way back to 1970s, where she is trying to capture the worldview of Dalits from the perspective of their overt and covert practices, their overt and covert beliefs. Yes, that is the right word. Their overt and covert beliefs. So most of the beliefs of the subalterns are not captured by, especially the covert beliefs of the subalterns
Professor Nagaraj sir, please, participants, please bear with us. I think resource person is facing some technical issue. I hope he'll be back soon. Please wait. Thank you so much.
ஆமாங்க சார். அதான் நெட்வொர்க் இஷ்யூ தான் சார். என்ன இஷ்யூவா இருக்காங்க? Dear participants, sorry for the interruption, and there's a technical issues occurred there in the internet. So I is reconnecting it and we'll come back soon. Please bear with this. A participant can raise some few questions related to the topic. You can put it in the chat box so that we can ask question to the speaker.
Sir, kindly turn on your mic, sir. Your mic is turned off.
Sir, can you see me, sir? Now?
Yeah. Now we can hear you, sir.
So, I'm sorry, sir. I think now, can you hear me properly?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, sir. Sorry. So, we are talking about what is the nature of the phenomenology, and it's what is the nature of autonomy and authority within social sciences. So, my basic argument, based on the readings and reflections of the scholars, is that phenomenology as a school of thought primarily allows the sociological understanding of society, which goes beyond the idea of seeing and speaking. So now I would like to, so in a sense, this school of thought primarily celebrates the autonomy of the self. So I don't want to repeat all these points. I am sure all of you have heard these points. So now I would like to stop this particular point regarding phenomenology. I would like to switch over to the Orientalism. So, okay, Suresh and Sambat sir, it's okay?
So,
Hello,
okay, sir, you can
Sambat
continue,
sir.
sir.
So
Okay, sir.
Yes, going good.
Okay, right, thank you. So at one level, there is a commonality between phenomenology and Orientalism. Or in a sense, I would like to say, what is the phenomenology of Orientalism? And what are the epistemological assumptions and methodological assumptions behind developing Orientalism as a school of thought in post 1970s? So, friends, some of you are aware about what is the meaning of Orient. Orient. Would you like to see the PPT also?
Sir, no, sir, not yet, sir.
No, just 1 second, sir. I am presenting.
So when you are presenting PPT, can you please maximize the PPT, sir, so that we can see the content very clearly?
I am sure. I am showing, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, can you see me? Can you see the PPT now?
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
Just 1 second, sir. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, now it's processing.
Now, can you see, sir?
Yeah, yes, sir, we can.
Okay,
Open
sir.
the PPT and
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
yeah, this is good, sir. We can
Okay.
answer.
So, the basic question is, we need to understand what is the intellectual backbone behind the Orientalism as a school of thought. And we also need to understand what is the nature of the relationship between knowledge and power debate. So we are talking about this whole idea of Orientalism. Yeah, just now I discussed until 1970s, there were a number of schools of thought, starting from evolutionary theories to the functionalism and also micro-sociological theories. Just now we have mentioned about the from phenomenology to feminism. There were several schools of thought which have developed. But if you look at very carefully, most of the theories are primarily Eurocentric in nature. And we hardly see any sociological theory which are developed in Africa and Asia, which are popular in the context of the Western world. So in a sense, the knowledge is primarily flowing only in one direction. That is from global from global north to global south. So this is where, friends, one of the eminent scholar, by name Edward Said, he's basically his roots. He's basically hails from Palestine, but born and brought up in America. So in a way, he's a Palestinian American professor of English. And after studying the literature from the cultural perspective. So he primarily made an attempt to study what is the culture of literature, in the English-speaking world. So he came to realize that there is a binary within the framework of there is a binary within the there is a binary in the way they present the people of Asia in general and Middle East in particular to the Western audience. So this is where before I'm going to talk about all this the essence, what is the essence of Edward Said, I would like to just go point by point. So as most of you know that Orientalism is a study of a culture and civilization of the Western societies by the Western scholars. In a simple sense, Orientalism is a study of the Orient from the Occidental perspective. None of us have any idea about what is Occident. None of us have ever heard the concept called Occidentalism, unlike Orientalism. Right? So none of us have made an attempt also to develop a branch of knowledge called Occidentalism, which should be one of the important branch of knowledge in most of the universities in Asia and Africa. But anyway, that's a different point. So this is where, so the lack of studies on Occidentalism and the number of study centers like South Asia Center, Southeast Asia Center, almost all the from School of African and School of Oriental and African Studies of University of London to the South Asia Research Centers in America, almost all European universities and American universities have known for specializing on the cultural practices and the political economy and cultural economy of the people of Asia and Africa. But friends, that itself indicates, so the study of Orient and the study of African in European and American universities and lack of studies on the Occident in the Europe, in the Asian and American universities, Asian and African universities, primarily highlight the uneven relationship between the Orient and Occident. So this is where I would like to take your attention to the writings of the Indian indigenous scholar Jyotiba Phule from the perspective of India, and from the perspective of West, Michel Foucault, who talks about this whole idea of knowledge and power debate. So if you look at very carefully the entire literature and the entire writings, the history, if you look at the history of ideas, it primarily implies from 17th century to the almost year 2000, there was an attempt to rationalize, there was an attempt towards racialization of space and social groups. That means most of the Western epistemology is organized on the principles of the racialization of knowledge on the basis of geography, on the basis of social groups which are part of the geography. So this is where I would like to highlight the nature of the relationship between the Europe and the West versus Rest debate. So this is where taking clues on the basis of the literature, in the literature which were primarily taught in American universities as well as the mainstream European universities, Edward Said made a systematic attempt to understand what are the books and articles which are prescribed to represent the Orient in general and Middle East Muslims in particular in the context of Western universities. So based on his research, he realized that there was a systematic attempt to stigmatize the regions and there was a systematic attempt to stigmatize the regions and to stigmatize the people. So this is the stigmatization of the people and regions is primarily reflected in the form of Orientalism as a branch of knowledge which primarily aimed to study the political economy of imperialism and the cultural economy of knowledge production and the production of the knowledge production and knowledge politics in the context of Western world and the context of global world. So this is where, friends, we need to understand the point that Orientalism was a method of political and cultural discrimination against non-European societies and people in order to establish the European imperial domination. Worldly studies aims towards the classification of the people and the codification of cultures and spiritual practices in the name of modern civilization. So one of the important features of the Orientalist studies is that they always try to invent the other by classifying by classification of the people and the codification of the cultural practices. So this is where, friends, according to Edward Said, the essence of Orientalism is Western knowledge of the European world. So but the point is that what is the nature of the knowledge? That is, whether this knowledge is objectively, how far the knowledge produced by the Western scholars is value neutral, whether they have followed value neutral methodology or whether their knowledge whether their knowledge systems are guided by the methods of domination and subordination. So this is where one need to understand what is the nature of representation of how they are represented the idea of the Orient towards the Occident. So this is where I would like to take your attention to the writings of one of the famous American scholars by name Ronald Indian. Ronald Indian, who has written a thought-provoking article titled "The Oriental Construction of India." The Oriental Construction of India, where he tried to examine what is the nature of the relationship between, what is the nature of the knowledge produced by the Occidental scholars on the Oriental cultures. So based on number of writings produced by European scholars, including scholars like James Mill, who has written the book called The History of British India, to number of studies comes from the linguist scholars, comes from the literature scholars, and all the number of novels which are part of the colonial empire, so including some of these novels like the Pride and Prejudice, almost all the study of literature, study of languages, study of anthropologies, and the study of history. If you look at carefully, the studies of the study of literature, study of history, study of political economy, and study of the cultural practices of the people primarily represents three important defining features. That is, the Oriental knowledge is primarily guided by three important accounts or three important features. So what are the three important features of the Oriental knowledge practices? So if you look at very carefully here, all the books and articles written by the Europeans can be classified into three parts. The first type of writings are known as descriptive accounts. The first type of writings are known as descriptive accounts. So, which primarily, what is the aim of the descriptive accounts? The aim of the descriptive accounts is to present the other. The aim of the descriptive accounts is to construct the other. So, in a sense, inventing the other and the construction of the other. So what do I mean by inventing the other? So those who are familiar with the history of civilization and cultures, you are very much aware that most of these writings are, if you look at the Oriental scholars, the name Orient itself is primarily an outcome of the European sociological imagination of the world. That's where, friend, I would like to take your attention to the writings of Paulo Freire, who uses the concept called mapping the world. So, who are the people? What is this world map? Who defined this world map? World map, and why Christopher Columbus statue was, let's say, damaged in America? So, if you look at very carefully, the the literature clearly indicates that the worldview, the present world is primarily the world, the primarily an outcome, primarily belong to the European scholars. The division of the globe, the division of the globe, the mapping of the nations and mapping of the people, all these were primarily an outcome of the European construction of the world. So therefore, friends, with the naming, the nomenclature of the world need to be understood from a critical perspective. So as I mentioned here, by following the writings of following the writings of Ronald Linden, he primarily argues that the aim of the Oriental scholars is to invent the other first. Inventing the other is the first precondition for developing the epistemology. So, who is this other? The other in the context of Edward Said is nothing but the Oriental other. So here, all the Asian cultures and civilizations were primarily considered as the other of the Europe. So this is where the Orient is primarily divided into two parts: the Near East and the Far East. So the Near East means the people, the nations which are near to the Europe, those countries are referred as Near East because there is a racial convergence between the people of Near East, that is Turkey, and all this country, the Turkey, that is some of the Muslim countries like Turkey and all, they are very much nearer to Europe. So because of their because of their face, they were referred as Near East. But what is the Far East? The Far East is nothing but India and China, where this India and China, they are not only different form, they're not only racially different, but also culturally they're different. So therefore, friends, the Oriental other consists of the Near East and the Far East. So anyhow, the aim of the descriptive accounts is primarily to invent the other. So the other is none other than the European other. So the Europe is primarily considered as a self, whereas the non-European nations are considered as the other of the European self. Though it looks a bit, let's say more abstract, but the point is that this is how Ronald Linden is trying to, develop his theoretical understanding. So the second point is here. So as a part of the construction of the other, they are trying to depict. So with the people of Middle East are known for following all kinds of barbaric practices. The people of India and China are known for practicing all the ancient practices which are outdated. So these people, they are still their culture and civilization is very, very, very outdated. So the European construction of the other has its own manifest and latent functions. So what are the manifest and latent functions of the representation of the Oriental other? So first, as I said, the descriptive accounts are known for highlighting the number of cultural practices followed by the people of East. So, but as a part of the second discourse, which are known as the interpretative accounts, wherein following Edward Said, Ronald Linden argues that the aim of the descriptive accounts is to depict the otherness of the other. So friends, Here there are 2 points here which need to be remembered here. So the point is, as all of us know that in our school days, as a part of the example, they always talk about Rama and Ravana. So if they talk about Rama and Ravana in a value neutral sense, there is no problem. But at the second level, and the first level they say that Rama was a king of Ayodhya, Ravana was a king of Lanka. But in the second level, they also talk about the idea that Ravana was basically a demon. He was known for, let's say, doing all kinds of nonsense things. So, but Rama was an ideal man, ideal ruler, ideal husband. So there were so many positive attributes there are so many positive values are attributed to Rama, whereas so many negative values are attributed to Ravana. In the similar sense, when we're talking about the interpreted accounts depicting the otherness of the other, that means what is their the Oriental communities or the Oriental people, they are not simply the other of the Europe. Of course, the Oriental people are also human beings, but these are not the equal human beings on par with the Europe, on par with the white man of the Europe. So why they are other? Why they are different? So this is where celebrating the difference, that means depicting the otherness of the other, gains importance. What do you mean by depicting the otherness of the other? She primarily argued that when the entire the entire European countries or European continent is following the modern scientific rationality and the modern nation theory, modern idea of democracy and pluralism and the positivism, all it's primarily the modern Europe is known for following the positive values and the positive systems of knowledge. On the other hand, the Asian nations are known for following all the negative attributes. So all the negative attributes, that's one of the reasons why, though the Europe as a nation has developed, Europe as a continent has become a successful continent by end of the 19th century, but all the Asian countries are still known as a developing nations even in the 21st century. So what is the reason for the continued idea of the developing nation? Why most of the European, Asian and as well as African countries are known as developing countries or backward nations? The reason is that these nations are known for following all the barbaric practices and the cultural economy of these nations discourages any form of the scientific reasoning. So therefore, friends, reason, which is the mother of the invention. The reason which is the mother of invention is considered as the defining feature of Europe, whereas the faith or belief belief and faith are considered as the defining features of Asia and Africa. So that's why these scholars, they primarily argue that there is a binary opposition between the Orient and Occident. There is a binary opposition between the Orient and Occident. So in a sense, in order to just take your attention, I would like to quote here Louis Dumas' notion of the purity and pollution, where one can say that the purity is associated with the European rationality, whereas impurity is associated with the Asian spirituality or Asian faith and beliefs. So the basic idea is that we're talking about the reason and faith. The reason is considered as superior when compared to the faith. So therefore, friends, here the basic idea of the Oriental school of thought is to highlight the fundamental difference between the Orient and Occident, which is primarily organized on the principles of the hierarchical relations. So therefore, indirectly, the European political economy of knowledge which primarily advocates the idea of the modernization of the world from the Eurocentric perspective. So they primarily argue that the European model of political economy and cultural economy is better, is the ideal practice to the entire world. So they are not only here, that's where the third point also comes into picture. So the third point, as Edward Said and also Ronald Linden rightly mentioned, the third kinds of textbooks or articles which are primarily prescribed as a part of the reading materials in the European universities as well as American universities are known as hegemonic accounts. So what do you mean by hegemonic accounts? Friends, as all of us know, that the hegemony is a concept developed by scholars like Antonio Gramsci. Here also, we're talking about knowledge. Why all of us we read only particular texts? What are the texts which are prescribed about the Asian countries in the context of Europe? So here there are two kinds of texts which need to be considered here. We're talking about Asia. Most of the colonizers, one can classify the colonizers into two groups: the positive orientalists and the negative orientalists. So the negative orientalists are also known as the instrumentalist scholars. They were known for depicting Asia in a negative light, whereas the positive orientalists, such as Sir William Jones, and also so many, if you look at all our dictionaries of our mother tongue, like Telugu, Tamil, Oriya, Bengali, you name any Marathi, you name any language, most of the language, the dictionaries of the languages are primarily developed by the Europeans. Of course, what was the hidden agenda behind developing those dictionaries in a vernacular languages, that is a different point. But what I'm trying to highlight is that those scholars who love the literature, those scholars who love the languages, and those scholars who have the positive understanding towards the Indian culture and its Indology, they were known for developing, they were known as basically the positive Indologists who have a positive understanding of the Indian culture and civilizations. Whereas the instrumental orientalists, such as James Mill, who has written a book called The History of British India, which was a basic text for the ICS administrators. The Indian civil servants of London, they were supposed to read those particular texts before they marched to India. So it primarily highlights that there was a hierarchy of knowledge systems. There was a hierarchy of knowledge systems. Only those knowledge systems which were known for depicting the Indian culture and civilization in a negative light were primarily prescribed as the authoritative texts in most of the European universities and American universities until recently. That's one of the reasons why most of the Europeans and European scholars and American scholars were known for sharing a negative. They were known for sharing the stereotyped ideologies until recently in a very overt sense, and even today in a covert sense. So you'd be surprised to know that so in a sense, what I'm trying to highlight is that most of the sociological imagination of the European white or the American white were primarily dominated by the ideological texts which were part of their university studies. That's the point I am trying to highlight. So these hegemonic accounts, they were not only demonstrate the Asian cultures and civilization in inferior light, but also primarily argue that these Asian cultures, the Asian civilization or African civilizations are basically known as stationary civilizations. So despite of thousands of years of history, most of these countries were known for following the age-old cultural civilizations without much structural changes. Whereas the European societies, this is where Ronald Linden also quotes scholars like Hegel, who is known for talking about the dialectical relationship between the state and civil society in the context of Europe, were primarily responsible for the modernization of Europe. Whereas in the context of India, the civil society is known for encompassing, or the civil society is known for dominating the state. Whereas in the context of China, the state is known for dominating the civil societies. That's why the structural revolutions are absent in these great Asian civilizations. So what I mean to say is that Orientalism as a school of thought is primarily aimed to depict, is a basically, the Orientalism as a school of thought is is aimed to serve the political agenda of the Western states and the cultural agenda of the white man of the Europe until the early part of the 21st century, until the early part of the 21st century. So now only there are attempts, of course, from 1990s onwards, there was an attempt by taking inspiration from Ronald, taking inspiration from Edward Said. There are a number of scholars who are primarily known as the post-colonial scholars made a systematic attempt to deconstruct the Occidentalism, or they made an attempt to deconstruct the methodology of Occidental epistemology, and also they were known for developing the post-colonial theories as well as the subaltern theories, which are ultimately known for, let's say, challenging the fundamental assumptions and presumptions of the mainstream Orientalism. But despite of all these critics in the form of, let's say, Edward Said, Ronald Linden, and several other scholars, one can also see reinventing Orientalism in the form of the latest book by title The Clash of Civilizations by Samuel P. Huntington. So friends, I'm sure some of you might have, let's say, read at least one chapter about this book or introduction about this book. This book just published by one of the political scientists from America, who's trying to argue that after the end of the Cold War, now the world order is primarily reconfigured on the lines of the culture and religion. So he says that until 1990s, it was the political economy which was the guiding force of the world, where the world was divided into three parts: the first world, second world, and third world. But now the world is primarily divided into three groups. The first group is known as the Christian West, the second group is known as the Islamic East, and the third group is known as the swing civilizations. That means the present world is primarily dominated by three types of civilizations. That is the the Christian civilization of the West, the Islamic civilization of the East, and the swing civilizations once again of East, where India and China, to a certain extent Russia, are part of, especially India and China, are part of the swing civilizations. So in a sense, what I'm trying to say is that despite of the critical understanding of Orientalism, the Orientalism which is nothing but a kind of cultural imperialism, but once again, scholars like Samuel P. Huntington, Robert Fukuyama, in his work The End of History, all of them, they're trying to once again assert the Western, they try to assert the civilizational superiority of the West over the rest of the world. So friends, let me stop here. I would like to take any questions and queries. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful presentation. And I think now I'm hand over the mic to Dr. Suresh Babu, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Yes, we can hear you.
Sir. Thank you, Dr. Nagaraju, sir.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Sir, hearing, sir?
I can hear you, sir. I can hear you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Actually, a wonderful presentation, sir. In between, there's only 5 minutes break, but after that, it went well. and very much informative, sir. Really, with regard to the two titles, phenomenology and Edward Said's Orientalism and methodology, sir. Sir, actually, the participants are almost 140 participants are still alive because they're staying in the line, and then no one has left the thing, and they really interestingly they're listening to your lecture, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's glad, sir. Very glad to see that. And a few participants have raised a few questions, sir.
Please, sir.
And I'll give you, if you want to read one by one, or you can answer one by one, or shall I read all the questions together?
Suresh sir, I can, you can ask, you can raise 3-4 questions on the same time, which are similar, so that I will take different sets of questions.
Okay, so the two participants, namely Arya and Sriram, they were asking about phenomenology. How phenomenology is applicable to fields?
How phenomenology is applicable to?
Fields.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Is it an effective way of studying human behavior? This is question number one. Now, another question is, phenomenology is more applicable to case studies,
okay,
but not suits for survey kind of research, where sample size is more. Is it right? This is second question. The third question is raised by Sonia. How suits phenomenology differs from Weber's Proustian approach and Parcerian social action? And the question is, what is your opinion about phenomenology of experience discrimination between whites and blacks in America now, and how should we see it? Raised by Famila Raji.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yes, these are all related to phenomenology, sir.
Okay, sir. So thank you very much, Dr. Suresh sir, for raising the question. And also, I am thankful to all the participants who have really asked me some of the thought-provoking questions. So let me take the essence of phenomenology according to my understanding. Of course, all of us, we have different, all our way of understanding also differs from our ideological framework. So my my response to question number 2 is, phenomenology is basically applicable only in the context of case study method. That's correct. We can't apply at a macro level and a large scale survey kind of things. But the phenomenology, basic, as I highlighted at the end of the point on phenomenology, is that we are talking about the human sensors. As a human being, the eyes and the eye is primarily meant for, let's say, sight. We can see. And would have, let's say, tongue, we were in a position to speak. But friends, nowadays, scholars, some of the eminent public intellectuals like Professor Gopal Guru, he is also talking about what is the meaning of touch. So the entire, now we are living in the era of Corona times, we are talking about the physical distance. But if you look at the entire, the social organization of Indian society, the social organization of America, Europe, it primarily implies the idea of touch and untouch. So therefore, but until recently, as I mentioned about scholars like John Mencher, until 1970s, when she made a systematic attempt to study the anthropology of caste system in Tamil Nadu based on 5 village studies, though we have eminent scholars starting from G.S. Gurrier to Louis Dumont, M.N. Srinivas, and Andhra Pradesh, several scholars, but their way of understanding was primarily based on their limited worldview. So they, as I said, they were primarily followed only the idea of the spoken method as well as observation method. But here, when John mentioned, and now people like Gopal Guru is trying to, let's say, elevate the idea of the experience as epistemology. Because what is the meaning of experience for a woman who is under menstruation? Why she is considered as untouchable in her own family? Why a group of people were primarily considered as untouchable despite of coming out of their own traditional occupations? So these are the fundamental questions which primarily recognizes the importance of the phenomenology of touch, the phenomenology of symbolic violence. So we are talking about the way we see. There is also a kind of domination, subordination in the way we see, the methods of seeing and methods of receiving. The husband always, the way husband look at the wife is always something different from the way wife look at the husband. Especially I'm talking about the Indian context. So I feel that there is a domination and subordination. So the eyes have the power to communicate without opening your mouth. So here, friends, my understanding is that yes, though it's applicable to case study method. So by taking the larger ongoing picture in the context of America, Europe, and also in the context of India, see though the experience is tend to be reduced to the individual level, but all the individual consists of groups, or the group is a collection of individuals. So we are talking about this whole idea of experience. There is an individual experience when a Savarna woman in the context of India is when she is forced to sit outside of her house in a particular period. That is one kind of let's say touch and untouch. But when a large group of people, when one particular community is stigmatized, that also need to be taken seriously, not as a case study, rather is also comes under large study method. I think it depends on our methodological worldview. So therefore, the ongoing protest movements, especially in the context of America, Europe, which primarily which primarily talking about primarily highlighting the discrimination on the basis of on the basis of race, whereas not only Americans, you will be not only African Americans, friends, you will be surprised to know there are a large number of Indians and Asians and Europeans. Sorry, especially the large number of Asians are also participating in the anti-discrimination movements. So that's where we need to understand this, that the whole idea of the whole idea of experience deserves a large scale sociological understanding. That is my let's say answer. Experience demands larger scale understanding, friends.
Thank
I
you,
hope I
sir.
am sorry.
Sir, a few more questions. Okay, sir.
Please, sir.
Okay, sir. Raised by Akila.
Sir.
If phenomenology starts from no, not Akila, sir.
Sorry. One question regarding Max Weber and Alfred Schultz.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, that point is really correct, sir. As I mentioned, because of paucity of time, I could not dwell on that point. But
Yes, sir.
as
Yes,
all
sir.
of us, the intellectual inspiration for Alfred Schultz primarily comes from Max Weber. Max Weber, he was one of the, let's say, one of the first scholars within sociology who is known for going beyond the so-called who is known for going beyond the idea of objectivism as a authentic rationality. He is one of the first person who is known for making an effort to study the society from the subjective worldview. So in that sense, Alfred Schultz has primarily inspired by the writings of Max Weber.
Super,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir. So two more questions there with regard to phenomenology. The question number one is, if phenomenology starts from bracketing of consciousness, if phenomenology starts from bracketing of consciousness, are there social realities which are not available for the experience of phenomenologists or for social sciences?
Sir, please repeat, Suresh, sir.
Sir, so question number one, sir, if phenomenology starts from bracketing of consciousness,
okay.
Are there social realities which are not available for the experience of phenomenologists of social sciences?
Okay, very good, sir. Okay, sir.
Question number one. That's question number two is, does phenomenology serve as a philosophical foundation for social sciences, or destabilizes them?
Once again, Suresh.
Does phenomenology serve as a philosophical foundation for social sciences, or destabilize them? How?
Okay. These two questions, sir.
Yeah, these two questions you can answer, sir.
Okay, sir. So first of all, we are talking about the phenomenology from the perspective of self, from the perspective of researcher and researched. So the fundamental question, which primarily dividing the intellectual community, is who has the right to represent the voice? Yes, we have studied as a part of the subaltern school of thought, including the famous article by Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak, Can Subaltern Speak? So here also the ongoing debate of Gopal Guru and Sundar Sarikar, where their central question is who has the right to speak for whom? So, as a part of the social science research, we tend to represent, we as a scholars, we tend to represent the voice of the social groups. So, the moral question or the ethical question is how far these social scientists are representing the voice, because just now I mentioned about Orientalism. And if you study fundamentally feminism also is referred that the mainstream sociology, nothing but mainstream sociology. And so I can give you so many examples. But the point is, so this is an ongoing debate. So where this whole idea of the self and the other, the phenomenology as a methodological inquiry, try to develop the idea of the self and other, wherein the self need to represent the consciousness and the consciousness as well as the experience of the research, the experiences of the communities or social groups whom we are studying. So though this my answer once again is also reproducing the hierarchy between the researcher and researched, because I am unable to find alternative words. So that's why I am giving in a general terminologies. So the point is that the point of departure is that this whole idea of experience as epistemology and right to representation versus right to representation. Friends, there is a difference. Right to representation versus right to representation. So we are representing the worldview. So, but now the scholars like radical feminists and some of the radical subaltern scholars, they are advocating for right to representation within epistemology. So that's where some of the scholars are saying only Dalit women can speak for Dalit. Dalit men need not to speak. Let Adivasi women speak for herself. Let the Muslim woman speak for herself. So this was the ongoing debate, friends. According to my reasoning, it has its own. Those debates are epistemologically or methodologically speaking is very much right. At the same time, how to understand the empathy? Is it right to this is where at the same time is also important to understand that how can some of the European scholars have contributed immensely in understanding Indian society when compared to our own Indian scholars. So the best example is Hermendorf, who wrote on tribes. And there are, I spoke about John Mencher. And also, if you refer to the writings of Eleanor Gillett, who wrote on Ambedkar, there are several European scholars, especially the white women, who are known for contributing immensely towards representing the voice of the voiceless people. So my position on the question of right to representation and right to presentation is primarily context specific. I feel it's context specific. Because when you're talking about the right to representation at one level is really good. But if you take it to the extreme end, we are also working towards a kind of epistemological fundamentalism. I think that's where I am not comfortable with the epistemological fundamentalism. This is my take.
So thank you, sir. One more question, sir.
Sir.
In what way can you define the worldview of phenomenology? In what way can you define the worldview of phenomenology? One question. Another question is, what are the challenges I would encounter in employing interpretative phenomenological analysis as a research approach? What are the challenges I would encounter in employing interpretative phenomenological analysis as a research approach? That is the second question, sir. And
sir, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Next question also. Okay.
Yes, two questions, sir. Two questions.
Okay, sir. Okay. So, as I said, the phenomenology as a branch of, as a methodological inquiry, aim to capture the human experience and the consciousness of the micro communities. So, since if you want to study the experience of an Adivasi, or experience of an Adivasi woman, or a Dalit woman, or a Muslim woman, or an African American woman in the context of America, one can make a systematic attempt in a particular time and space context. So that's where I feel that phenomenology is very much applicable. But how to understand phenomenology? What are the challenges? In what way the phenomenological understanding is different from, let's say, participant observation method, which all of us are familiar. That's what we were taught as a part of our sociological methodologies. So as I mentioned that the human experience is not a byproduct of one particular, is not a byproduct of one day event. So the problem with most of the positivist traditions is that they try to spend, let's say, 1 month, 2 months, or let's say 3 months or 4 months in a particular village or in a particular community to understand, to come up with a kind of anthropological or sociological account of a particular about a particular phenomena. But the point is that our worldview, if you limit our worldview only to the question of the observations which are visible, we are not going to justify. I think our research is going to have some kind of limitations. So that's where most of the scholars, like as I said, mentioned about Vivek Kumar in his writing, How Egalitarian in the Indian Sociology is, where he primarily critiques the writings of M.F. Srinivas, the writings of Andre Bethe, writings of Luis Dumo, all of them, their experiences are based on a particular, their location in a particular group, particular community. So now the point is that, friends, one need to go, as we have different human organs, as I mentioned, there is a sociology of touch. There is a sociology of consciousness. Our consciousness is primarily an accumulation. Consciousness is an accumulation of the past, present, and our vision for the future. So therefore, my reading is that by following Alfred Schultz's idea of the social worldview, which is primarily celebrates understanding of society from a subjective worldview with objective rationality. Objective rationality is going to make us going to provide us a meaningful account. So in a simple sense, my understanding is that when you're studying a particular phenomenon from a phenomenological perspective, we need to go beyond the things which are visible. So we need to understand what is the meaning behind the visible action. That means, let's say, at the time of marriage, since I come from a small village, I would like to give you a small example. So at the time of marriage, I have observed that always there is a pattern, the way the bridegroom and bride sits together, the way they stand together, always the wife has to stand besides the left hand side of the husband. We never see the reverse experience. So the question is that there are so many internal worldview, there are so many internal meanings which are known for guiding the human actions. I think that's where the phenomenological inquiry is very much important, especially with reference to the cultural practices of the subaltern communities, which are primarily known as the little traditions in the context of Indian society. So thank you.
Nagaraju sir, there are a lot many questions raised by participants
Sir,
with regard to phenomenology, but I am stopping it about phenomenology. I have only one or two questions with regard to Orientalism. This is the
yes,
last
sir.
question you will have to answer. Then we will wind up,
Yeah.
sir. We'll give
Sir.
over 2 or 3 minutes to you to answer the question, sir. Thank you, sir. Once again, sir.
Yeah.
There's a question raised by Dr. Imran Ansari. What are the positive view of Orientalism according to your own view? What are the positive view of Orientalism according to your own view? That is the question raised by one of the participants. And the next question is, does globalization lead to cultural imperialism? These two questions, sir. Final questions.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So the first question is very simple, sir. As I mentioned in my lecture also, we are talking about Orientalism. There are two schools of thought in Orientalism. One is the instrumentalist Orientalism. Second one is the positive Orientalism. As I said, there are several scholars who belong to the positive Orientalist school. I gave the example of Sir William Jones and several others all over the country. And in the context of South India, Madam Thomas Monroe, in the context of Madras Presidency, there are several British administrators and scholars who had a kind of positive, let's say, idea of positive orientation towards the Oriental cultures. So they made a systematic attempt to develop these cultures, and also they glorify the Indian cultures. That is one thing. So in a sense, so that's where we need to also understand the positive dimension of the Orientalism. As I said, the negative Orientalism. What kind of lessons we should learn from negative Orientalism is that it is the need of the hour from the perspective of Asia and Africa to develop Occidentalism. That means how to understand the world from the perspective of the East in general and India in particular. So, why, as Paula Freire already mentioned, I gave the example. So far, the worldview, the sociological worldview of the society is primarily organized on the principles of the pedagogy of oppressor. Now, this is the time to revisit the entire Orientalism by writing Occidentalism, which is going to be considered as the kind of pedagogy of the oppressed. That is the question for, that is our first question. What is second question, Suresh? Hello, Suresh. That's Suresh.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Sir,
Second question.
Sir, for that one more question, sir, related to that said questions. I'll tell you. So, does globalization lead to cultural imperialism? That is one question,
Yes.
sir. One more question, last question, sir, if you don't mind. Edward Said's work based on the fantasy. Edward Said's work based on fantasy, how one can relate it with factual society.
Okay.
Edward Said works based on fantasy, how one can relate it with factual society. This is the last question, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, sir, the second question is that is globalization. The globalization is a form of imperialism. Yes, at one level, globalization is a form of imperialism at one level. But at the same time, let me invoke one of the leading intellectuals from Tata Institute of Social Sciences by name Ramaya. I think here Ramaya, where he said that, and also according to some of the critical scholars like Kanchalaya and this kind of scholars, they primarily argue that globalization is also an opportunity for the subalterns, because first time in their life they got a chance to expose themselves to the modernity. First time in their life they were in a position to be part of the cyber society, which were until recently they were considered as these spaces were primarily meant for the elite. So therefore, friend, at one level, globalization is a form of, at one level is a cultural imperialism, at another level is also a cultural liberation, I feel. So I don't want to just only, let's say, celebrate only one dimension of globalization. At another level, is definitely globalization is also opportunity at another level. So now the last point regarding Edward Said study based on the fantasies. So the point which need to emphasize is that Edward Said, being a scholar of English literature, he primarily used all the English novels and literature related texts as a source of analysis. But the point is that we need to take the essence. Now we need to take what is the essence of his argument. Doesn't matter, though his writings are based on, let's say, the secondary literature. But my reading is that nothing wrong in taking essence of his epistemology. That's where, at one level, we need to understand that he was one of the first scholars who made this kind of path-breaking study by writing this book called Orientalism, which has become a kind of inspiration to several scholars all over the world, especially from the third world. Thank you, Suresh.
Hello. Sir, thank you
thank
so much for wonderful answers. And a lot of participants are having so many questions. And if you will share your email ID, and they can ask you some question to your personal phone number or mail.
Sir, Suresh, sir, my email is already there, sir, in our PPT.
And sir, the participants will raise questions, sir. They'll send mail to you, sir.
Please,
sir,
sir,
now
please, sir.
I thank you so much, sir, on my side and on department side. Now I'm hand over the mic to the Dr. Sambat Kumar, Professor Head, to give a vote of thanks, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Sir, Dr. Nagaraju Gundemeda, sir, was excellent presentation, sir. And I think, I think with smaller interruptions, but overall it was excellent, sir. Excellent, sir. I think almost all the participants gave a wonderful feedback about your work, sir. But I think your energy is really great, sir. I think continuously you are presenting almost for more than 1 hour 50 minutes. So thank you so much, sir, for your presence and gave a really overview about the two authors and their applications in the research. It was really eye opener for all of us, sir. Okay.